I know that my first generation bilingual people are gonna get this video. So there was a time in my life, first of all, Spanish was my first language, but there was a time in my life where I was forgetting how to speak Spanish because everything I did was in English, right? I went to school in English, I spoke to my friends in English, I was surrounded by just Americanos, gringos. I grew up in a very, very white area. We were like the only Hispanics there. So I wasn't speaking a lot of Spanish unless I was at home. And my parents, you could speak to them in English, they would understand, they would respond in Spanish. There was a time where I was losing my ability to speak in Spanish the way that I do now. And then when I got to high school, I started to lose my accent, okay? I started to lose my Cuban accent in Spanish because the Hispanics that I was exposed to in high school, there were very few, but the group that was there, like the majority of those Hispanics were all Venezuelan. So then I started to pick up on a Venezuelan accent, and when people would hear me speak Spanish, they thought I was Venezuelan. But before that, because I grew up in Orlando, when I would leave Winter Park, which is where I grew up mostly, and I would venture into other parts of Orlando, the only Hispanics there, the majority, are Puerto Rican. So it's a time in my life where I went from having kind of forgetting Spanish to then picking up a Puerto Rican accent to then picking up a Venezuelan accent. And then I said, no puede ser. I cannot continue to live like this. People need to know when they hear me speak Spanish that I am Cuban. I may have not been born there, but both of my parents are. Like, I want people to identify me as Cuban. I want my accent to be as Cuban as possible. And thank God I fixed that, because I had such a mix of accents. And I think that was a part of also my like issues with my identity, of like having an identity crisis. If I didn't have, when I would speak Spanish, people wouldn't be able to identify me. So then I felt, okay, how do you identify where someone is from? The way that they speak a language, right? Their accent when they speak it. So thank God, moving to Miami, my Cuban accent has gotten a lot stronger. But there was a time in my life where like the accent was changing. And I know that a lot of first generation people would understand that, because maybe they don't grow up in a place where the majority of the people around them, like Miami's just an exception, truly, have their same cultural background, and they're around other Hispanics, and then they start to pick up from their accent. So they don't really talk like their parents or where their parents are from. So yeah, just wanted to know if anyone experienced the same.